Before we get started, I want to give you an idea so that it's not confusing. We've got a number of candidates. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Thank you, thank you. I'm going to ask that we hold a pause till the end so that we can get through being introduced to all of our candidates and some of the questions that have been submitted by the community. Candidates have all been given a number, a random number, and that's the order in which we're going to go with our introductions and answering of questions. We probably have a lot of the same type of question from the community members, so we're in process right now sorting those. We're combining those like questions. Then we will ask that question, and if a candidate would like that question to be one that they answer, keeping in mind there'll probably only be time for one answer per candidate, you can raise your hand, and we'll, in that order of your numbers, your random numbers, then you'll answer that question. Does that make sense? Clear as mud. I think we'll get through this and we'll get some good information. With that, I would like to introduce Mr. Chuck Bergeron. He's with Corporal Christopher Nelson, American Legion, Post 49, and he is going to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. This time I ask you to please rise, remove your hats, place your hand over your heart.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chuck. Way to start a meeting. Also, I would like to have Mr. Gene Weaver come up to the stage. Give a nice welcome on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. Gene, where are you? There he
is. Well, when my daughter first proposed having this event on a Sunday afternoon, I thought, that's a dumb idea. Because she has a good idea every once in a while, but anyway, then I said, who in their right mind, the candidates, or who would come out on a Sunday afternoon, and they probably are maybe getting a little break from the strenuous campaign trail. But I am really gratified, and that somebody remarked to me, there's more candidates here than there are people. So this is really nice of all you people to come down to Rochester. Rochester has been kind of, for a lot of years, was the county seemed to end at Little Rock, and we didn't get much recognition, but thanks to some fantastic county commissioners that we've got in office right now and things, we've really a lot of things going on in Rochester now. And thanks to Bud and the county staff and everybody, and I guess it's regional planning and things. We've got a Main Street Rochester program just getting off the ground. We've got a committee working from the chamber. I wanted to also say thank you and welcome from the Chamber of Commerce, and let's give a hand to the citizens organization here that keeps this sweet hall going, because they're donating this building for the event today for us. So let's give them a hand. But we have, along with the Main Street program, which is dedicated to 80 feet through the middle of town, we have developed a theme team for the chamber to try to what are we going to do with the rest of the town, and who are we, and what's our vision, what's our goal, what do we want to be in 5 or 10 years? So today I can welcome you from, let's see, Rochester, believe it or not, Rochester, the mole capital of the world. Gopher, capital of the world. Let's see, a little bit of, well, somebody said the pole yard is kind of our, what are we going to do with the pole yard if we're going to try to improve our image and that? So we've come up with this, maybe the giant toothpick capital of the world. Anyway, I just want to welcome everybody and thank you for coming out this afternoon, and we really appreciate it, and we hope that you get some good questions and put you on the spot and have you tell us what your goals and things for our government is. Thank you very much.
Now we've got some housekeeping items to make sure that you're comfortable, and Donna Weaver is going to share those with you.
All right, housekeeping, bathrooms, women's, men's, exits, all of those things. Don't feel like you have to stay in your seats for the whole program. I am an antsy individual, and I'm sure a few of you are too. Get up, go get some snacks, get your coffee when you want, except for the candidates. You guys are forced to sit there this whole time, okay? We are going to be live streaming this afternoon, so thank you, Troy, and you can find it on Facebook, South Sound Events. So thank you so much for coming out today, and let's get started, Tamara.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you. As Donna mentioned, my name is Tamara Marlowe. I'm your secretary for the Grand Mount Rochester Chamber of Commerce, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of this afternoon. Again, I want to thank you so much, candidates, for coming and spending a few hours with us. I know that you've got a lot to do. Yes, thank you very, very much for that. It occurs to me that I believe a number of the folks in this room serve in some capacity or are involved with an organization that works towards the betterment of our community. Can you just give yourselves a round of applause for doing that for our community? That's not a very big applause for that. We'll get to it later though. Let's get started with our 3-minute introductions. I'd like for you to, one at a time, come on up, and we're going to give you, Diane, can you please raise your hand? Diane's our timer. She's going to give you a 3 for a 30-second wrap-up, and then she's going to give you a for 10 seconds. I'm going to take that as a cue as well to keep track of that 10 seconds, and once that 10 seconds is up, I'll say thank you very much. So hopefully we can get all the words in without it sounding like I'm rude. I don't mean to be that way. Who is number 1? Please, come on up, and then also everybody, let's not do rounds of applause all between, because that'll take us all night long, and I don't know about you, but I've got things to do too. So please introduce yourself. Let's get started with your 3 minutes.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and first let me give thanks to all of the folks who made this happen. Speaking for myself, and I think for all of the other candidates, we are certainly pleased to have the opportunity to come out and meet with you fine folks. So, we passed around this little bowl, and I opened my thing up. I thought it was going to say, eat General Cho's chicken. But instead it was number 1. So here I am. My name is James Thomas. I'm running for state representative in the 35th Legislative District, Seat 1. I operate a medical manufacturing business up in Shelton at the port, and have been involved with the community for a number of years now. I've been on the Economic Development Council for I can't really tell you how many years, and as chairman of that council these last 2 years. And I just finished up a 2-year stint as chair of the Planning Advisory Commission in Mason County, wherein we did a complete rewrite of the comprehensive plan and a complete redo of the welfare development plans. I've never run for public office before, and I must tell you it's a daunting experience. But I look around the 35th district and I see so many opportunities. I see so many assets that we have available to us, and yet, in the 35th, we lag the state and the nation in income, in unemployment, even in life expectancy. So I've put together a campaign that's based on 3 basic pillars. The first is jobs and opportunity for today. The second is education and prosperity for our children tomorrow. And the third is good stewardship of our environment, because that is the ultimate legacy that we'll pass on to our children and grandchildren. And with that, I am going to thank you for your time, ask you for your consideration, and go on to number 2.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And who is number 2? Victor, come on up.
Thank you.
Yes.
Number 3, be ready.
Of course. How's that?
Perfect, thank you.
Great, okay. I'm Victor Minharis. I'm running for Thurston County Prosecutor. This is my 4th or 5th visit, I think, to Sweet Hall. Usually my wife and I would come here and dance, but this time I'm just going to dance on stage. Tell you a little bit about myself and my campaign. Thank you so much for the civic engagement and bringing the community together here in Rochester for this event. Let me tell you a little bit about what I'd like to do to improve Thurston County. Right now, Thurston County is engaged in deficit spending. One of the things we're going to do, despite the deficit spending and drawing down our reserves as budgeted in this 2-year biennium, is to build an $11 million addition to the county jail. Our county jail is actually huge for a county this size. King County, which has 8 times our population, has a 2,000-bed jail. Thurston County has a 488-bed jail. So it's about twice the size that it should be. And yet we're going to add 110 beds to the existing jail. That's in the budget right now as I talk to you today. The reason for that is that the prosecutor's office is not well run or managed. Court continuances have been a huge problem for years and years and years. The incumbent has been the head of the criminal division since 2003. He had 7 years to learn the system and learn how to improve it. And he's been the prosecutor since 2010. He's had 8 years to enact any reforms or changes. Last summer, a report came out issued by an independent entity, the National Council of Superior Courts, that showed how poorly run the prosecutor's office was. How many cases were continued again and again, how slow it was to get evidence turned over in a timely fashion to take cases to trial, and that cost you, the taxpayer, a lot of money. It costs $43,000 a year to fill up each of those 488 beds in the jail. So every time a case is continued, it takes money out of your pocket. Right now, they're talking about spending $11 million for the addition. If you remember, the replacement jail was budgeted at $24 million, and it ended up costing $48 million to build, and then it was empty for 5 years. Now it's at 105% capacity, and we're paying other jurisdictions to house our prisoners. That is not acceptable. I'd like to reduce the jail population by managing the Thurston County Prosecutor's Office effectively, setting up clear written policies and guidelines, which now don't exist, and making sure that justice and fairness is the reason that things are going well. I want to bring back the American tradition of efficiency with our tax dollars.
Thank you,
and
Victor.
justice. Thank you.
Wow, that was interesting transition there. Totally random.
Or 2 at a
Totally random.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the Chamber for the invite to be here. My name is John Tunheim. I'm running for re-election as County Prosecutor. I've served the citizens of this county now for 30 years in the Prosecuting Attorney's Office, working as a trial deputy, then as Chief Deputy under my predecessor, Ed Holm. I know there's some familiar faces in the crowd today from a project that I worked on when I was chief deputy, along with my predecessor, called Rochester Weed and Feed. And a number of you may remember the efforts that we made to rejuvenate Rochester by working on both prevention and development as well as enforcement. Since becoming elected prosecutor, I've brought to the office now kind of three fundamental goals that I continue to pursue. One is, first and foremost, is always to protect the community. That is the primary mission of the criminal division of the prosecutor's office, to make sure that we are always making decisions which make the community safer. Second is support victims. That is an exclusive role of the prosecuting attorney in the criminal justice system, to ensure that victims' voices are heard in the system, that they have the victims' rights are in fact enforced as their cases go through. Also, being an advocate for prevention, working in the community, working with community groups to prevent crime. Now, in terms of protecting the community, we do that by being smart on crime. I will tell you right now, our current county jail actually does not have any more capacity than the prior county jail. We only have 70 more people in custody today, or this year average, than we did in 2001. We've managed our jail population very, very well, and will continue to do that. In part because I've worked with system partners, not by myself, this is a system. We've got to build partnerships and work together to add diversion programs and get people out of criminal justice that don't need to be in criminal justice, yet take an aggressive enforcement stance for those who are in fact a risk to the community. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm happy to talk to anybody anytime, individually and offline, about any of these issues, and I would appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation from the chamber. We just went doorbelling out in Little Rock, drove along the river there. This is the most beautiful area, so thank you for the opportunity to get to know your community better. My name is Irene Bowling. I'm running for State Senate for the 35th LD. I'm an educator. I have a PhD. I'm a teacher in Bremerton. My family are shipyard workers, loggers from Mason County, and teachers. I'm very interested in economic development. This is my primary goal, especially for the 35th, which is one of our more depressed economically and educationally areas in the state. I would like to bring in manufacturing, and especially cross-laminate timber. I'm very interested in giving Oregon some competition for that. Also, I think hemp growing might be a very interesting approach to some of the land that we have here in Mason County and down farther south. As an educator, of course, I'm extremely concerned about the strike that you just had here in the area to produce the very best education equally, not only from rural areas, but in every situation throughout the state. I'm very concerned about the McCleary decision that the legislature came out. This is one of the main reasons also that I'm running. So to sum it up, educational opportunity for everyone, regardless of where they live, from kindergarten or preschool all the way through college. I would like to also increase, especially in Mason County, the Olympic College campus, quadruple its size. We don't have any opportunities for students. They have to travel on the average of an hour or more just to go to school. So this is no good, and we need to have legislators that will bring those opportunities into our area so that we can develop further, so that we can have a vital and strong economy in our area. There's no reason why we shouldn't have that, but we need people to get noticed and to bring that money where the mouth is, and bring it into our counties here, in Thurston County, in Mason County, and in Kitsap County. So thank you very much. I have information on the table there. I have a website, and I look forward to working with you in the legislature. Thank you very much.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank the organizers of this, putting this together. It's very civic democracy, to be able to express your opinion, your your vote, and I very much appreciate it. I am Thurston County Commissioner Bud Blake, and I'm asking for 4 more years to be your county commissioner. And friends and neighbors, let me tell you what, I love my job, and I love what I do for you, and I want to do it for 4 more years. The reason why I said that is I'll highlight 3 items. First and foremost was a campaign promise 4 years ago that the Habitat Conservation Plan, otherwise known as the Ponds on the Pocket Cover, is going to be solved once and for all in the upcoming years. That critter has plagued more people and taken their property. I have had more people in my office crying over the last 4 years, and we cannot tolerate any more such of that. It started off at $151 million or 9,000 acres 3.5, 4 years ago. We have it down to approximately $50 million and approximately 1,000 acres over 30 years of time. I give you my word that I work diligently on this over the next year or so. We'll have it solved. We'll get on with our life and have assurity so that you can raise your family and keep your property as such. The other item is deficit budget. Yes, we do have a deficit budget, but it doesn't come easy. There's all kind of challenges and financial challenges that you have to face when you take office. There are a lot of one-time expenditures that we had to make a financial decision to buy our way out of, and it was costly at first because of some of the decisions made in the prior years. But we're done with those, and we're going to move on to a lot of glory years in terms of revenue over expenditures. It just takes a matter of time. You'll see it restored at the end of this year, and in the next upcoming years, you'll see how it works as far as getting those revenues back into shape and being able to have business thriving here in Thurston County, especially in the South County. And finally, I want you to have public safety. Public safety is absolutely critical to those here in the unincorporated part of the county. The sheriff needs more deputies, and we need more correction officers. It is important to me because I absolutely not stand the idea of a domestic violence happening at one particular house in a 7-minute or 11-minute response time and no backup for a sheriff officer. I want that to happen for each one of the households here so they can live happily with their children, and the women in the house and the men in the house be able to be safe, to be able to raise their kids. I thank you so much, and I love my job. I want to be there for you. Please vote for me again here this November. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Paul Raines. I am the representative for Congressman Denny Heck. I want to thank you all for putting this on, and I'm here to read a brief statement. Denny has been running for many of the reasons that have served our communities for decades. Our country is at its best with a strong middle class, affordable health care for all, and a smart national security strategy. Denny wants to focus on 4 major topics when he is reelected: healthcare, military, veterans, good-paying jobs, and sustainable environment. With healthcare, every American deserves lower insurance premiums and lower costs. Denny supports universal coverage and giving citizens 55 and older the option of buying into Medicare. He has opposed any proposal of taking health insurance away from patients and attacking reproductive health or cutting Medicare and Social Security. Instead, Congress should focus on the public health crises of the opioid epidemic, inadequate mental health services, and the gun violence epidemic. Talking about them is not enough. With military and veterans, Denny is grateful for the sacrifices of the women and men who serve our country. Service members transitioning into civilian life must not be left behind, and Congress should ensure they receive the support they have earned. Denny opposes privatizing the VA and supports holding accountable those responsible for past failures. With good-paying jobs, we need an economic recovery that includes wage growth. We need to build modern transportation, water, and energy systems. We also need to work to lower housing production costs and end house shortages. Congress must pass net neutrality into law and ensure a fair and open internet for all. Finally, with the sustainable environment, intense and frequent droughts, wildfires, and extreme weather events threaten our national security. For our kids and grandchildren, we should implement cost-efficient plans to transition to a low-carbon economy. We must find smart ways to stop flows of toxins and stormwaters into our Puget Sound before our orcas and salmon go extinct. The United States is exceptional because of our commitment to the rule of law, free and open elections conducted with integrity and without foreign interference. Denny is dedicated to defending our Constitution and would be honored for your vote coming November. I will be able to take questions later on, but I will not be able to provide answers to them. So I'll talk to you at 5. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right, number 7,
Hi, my name is Ty Menser. I'm running as a Democrat for the Board of County Commissioners, District 3. I'd like to thank the Rochester Chamber for this additional opportunity to present my candidacy. I've been down here a number of times in the campaign, always enjoy the trip. I'm running for County Commissioner to help Thurston County prepare for its future. The county faces increasingly complicated problems with fewer and fewer financial resources to solve them. The population growth that we see all around us every day will only further strain our ability to provide services and protect our natural resources. I'm concerned when the county has been in deficit spending for 2.5 years. I'm concerned when the county is formally out of compliance with the Growth Management Act, affecting its eligibility for grant monies. I am deeply concerned when homeless numbers continue to spike in our community, especially among children and families with children. Right now, our county commission includes former military and law enforcement officers. And that's all it includes. We need people from different walks of life, different professional backgrounds, different skill sets to try to bring critical thinking to the board and meet the challenges that Thurston County faces. I want to bring my personal, professional, and educational experiences to bear on new approaches to the problems facing Thurston County. I have an undergraduate degree in government from Harvard. I have a law degree from the University of California, Berkeley. I've had a 21-year legal career focused on criminal defense. The biggest part of your county's budget is the law and justice system. I spent the biggest part of my legal career in public service as a public defender. Before moving to Thurston County over a decade ago, I lived for 7 years in rural communities in northern Alaska, representing the interests of indigenous people living above the Arctic Circle and throughout interior Alaska. I served for 3.5 years on Thurston County's Water Conservancy Board, involving extensive training in Washington's complex water law. I learned Spanish and lived and studied in Mexico, Chile, and Argentina, and I appreciate what people from other cultures can bring and contribute to our community. I'm a bluegrass banjo player, as you might have seen at the Swede Day Parade. And I was raised by 4 public school teachers. My wife is a kindergarten teacher. I'm a father of a 13 and a 10-year-old. My dad was a teachers union president. These are reflective of my experiences, my background, my values, and what I will bring every day to working as your county commissioner. I appreciate this opportunity to address this group. I appreciate this opportunity to answer questions. I'm asking for your consideration and your vote on November 6th. Thank you for your attention today.
My name is C. Davis. I'm running for Washington State Representative in the 22nd District, Position 1. As we enter this historic election year of 2018, we must remember that were it not for our veterans, we would not be having an election in the United States. We would not have a United States. It is the sacrifices of our veterans that have ensured that our country continues to be the only beacon of liberty in the world, and that this experiment that we call liberty continues. I believe that the working men and women of Washington are the backbone of our state. Yet it is these working men and women who are being taxed out of their homes, seeing their neighborhoods ravaged by crime, and facing their employers being taxed out of business. I believe that earnings belong in the pockets of the people who earn them. As a taxpayer, I'm concerned about irresponsible government spending and the lack of accountability, endless taxation, and the loss of our individual liberties. I'm especially frustrated that people are in danger of losing their homes due to excessive property tax. The most vulnerable of these are the fixed income elderly and the disabled. But as you know, in the last legislative session, the property tax was raised through the roof. When you hear about regressive taxation, remember, property tax is the most regressive form of taxation. We work hard and often for decades to pay off our homes so we will have a secure place to live and something to pass to our future generations. We need to lower the property tax so it is no longer a threat to property owners. We must also change the tax foreclosure laws to be more protective of private property owners' rights. I will be your voice in the legislature to oppose the impending income tax, which they are calling a capital gains tax, but a bloated pig by any other name is still a bloated pig. I will also fight against the mileage tax, the carbon tax, and other abusive tax proposals. The state rakes in $26 billion a year. State government does not need more money, it needs to control its appetite for irresponsible spending. I will also be your voice for property owners' rights. The state has made too much of an imposition against private property owners, whether it be in the area of zoning and development or the intrusion of certain protected rodents. I will work to fight crime and clean up our cities by enforcing existing laws. I think that with responsible government spending, lower taxes, and reduced regulations, we can create jobs, improve services, and provide opportunities. The services that government best provides are roads, infrastructure, public safety, and education. I also want to say that this is the year the American people have had are frustrated with business as usual by the establishment elites. It is now time to take back our state and our country. So whatever you do,
Thank you,
be
Steve.
sure to vote.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Richard DeBold. I'm the state representative from the 20th District. First off, I want to say I've always kind of thought of Rochester as a little bit of Lewis County. At Thurston County, I hear all these issues, and you think about all the things that have been going on in our community, though. Rochester is on the border, and it's tough sometimes. As we go out tonight and we do all this, I wanted to thank all the candidates for coming out on Sunday night, but more than that, if their spouses are here, because my spouse is here, she's a school teacher, she's in the back, I want to thank your spouses for letting you guys do this. So if there are any spouses in the audience that are with their candidates tonight or significant others, please thank you for letting them come. First off, right now as we look at it, I've been in the legislature for many years, and I'm serving right now as the capital budget writer. I've worked with Senator Sheldon, and I've worked with Representative McEwen, who's on my committee as well, and Representative Griffey, and we've gone out and we've worked diligently to try to do what's best for Washington State, and especially Southwest Washington and the rural peninsula. We've been focused on broadband, and we've rolled out some of the biggest broadband programs that we've seen. I ran a bill that would create a reverse auction and create rural broadband systems throughout Washington State, but mostly in the underserved territories, and bring us up to speeds that we see in other areas. For example, you look at Toledo Telecom right down the road from us. It's the most wired city because they were able to get one of these broadband grants from a reverse auction, and it shows you that that investment works. And they're out building a new school, they're doing all these great things in their community, and they're doing it because of broadband. Secondly, flooding. How many times have we all been through Rochester when Moon Road is closed or Gate Road is closed? And you know the challenges that we face when it comes to flooding. I want to thank all the county commissioners from Thurston County and Lewis and Mason that have worked on this. The Flood Advisory Board's been fantastic. Our job in the legislature is not to come to the solution, but it's to fund the solution. And it's my commitment, it's why I'm running. I was close to retiring, and I talked to some folks in my community, and as the ranking on the capital budget who co-authors the budget, I have an opportunity to make sure I can help my community with the #1 issue in our area, which is water. You see everybody fighting over water. We have a problem with water in our community. We have too much at sometimes. And so there are solutions on the table. There are major flooding issues in Thurston, Cowlitz, and Lewis County, so it's something that impacts each and every one of us. So besides that, my last thing that I want to always focus on is what we can do on mental health. We see these folks all the time that are facing these crises, and they're people. Their children and their family members. And it's up to the legislature to do what we can to make sure that we help the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you. You're all doing so well. I'm very proud of you.
Richard's a little taller than afternoon. I'm State Representative Drew McEwen. I represent you in the 35th District, which basically goes from here all the way through Mason County and up to Silverdale in Kitsap County, so slightly bigger than Rhode Island. It's been a pleasure to represent you and serve you in Olympia for the last 6 years, and I look forward to returning. You know, there's 3 issues that I continue to focus on, and I'm proud to have accomplishments in all 3 of those areas. And that's making sure that our kids have the best opportunity for a world-class K-12 education. We've made a lot of improvements there, a lot of dramatic increases in funding, the largest since 1980. And one of the key pieces of legislation that we got done this past year on a bipartisan effort was reforming the test mandates on high school graduation. That has a significant impact directly on our students. You look at school districts like Rochester, and Kim Fye is the superintendent, and what she does with limited resources here is incredible. And it's ensuring, though, that we continue to get needed resources into the classroom so that our children can continue to go forward and have those best world-class opportunities. Also, always focus on the economy. We have a significant growth in our economy, and the last thing we need to do right now is put our foot on the throat of that economy, but yet that's what we continue to hear from the majority party in Olympia. We need another tax, we need another tax, we need another tax. It's only 2 more billion, 3 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, I was elected in 2012, the state budget was $34 billion. Last year, $51 billion, and not because of taxes. It's because of the economic strength and vitality of this state. That's a 50% increase over 6 years. So when you hear that drumbeat that they need more of your tax dollars, don't buy it. Don't buy it. It is the last and worst thing we could do for this economy. Finally, we need to continue to stay focused on ensuring that we spend your tax dollars wisely. I'm proud to have had legislation signed into law that reformed our state VA system, expanded those benefits to veterans that weren't previously included in some other legislation. We took care of that. We also cut a lot of the red tape and the bureaucracy on that. And I'm proud to have had that signed into law. This is we always say this is the most important election. And, I think that goes without saying every time that we are in one. And I just want to say, I firmly believe in the strength of our constituents and in this economy, but we can't spend every last dime. And that's why I voted against the budget this last year. It rated the rainy day fund under the drumbeat of needing more taxes when they didn't have the votes for that. They rated the rainy day fund before the funds went in there, so it was a maneuver around a supermajority vote. That's the wrong thing to do. We don't know if we're in the 7th inning or the 9th inning of this economy. We will have a downturn. But we need to guard against that and be prepared for when we do have that downturn. Stand on my track record. I look forward to continuing to serve you, and I'm asking for your vote this fall. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you all. I'm Stuart Holmes. I'm running to be Thurston County Auditor. I appreciate your time. I won't take 3 minutes, I promise. So for the last 13 years, I've been working in public service at both the county and the state level. My focus has primarily been in cybersecurity and accessibility of our elections. An example of kind of that balance of cybersecurity and accessibility is the voter information portal that's used by millions of voters across the state. In 2016, which was a presidential year, the Secretary of State entrusted me to redesign that portal and relaunch it in kind of a critical year in order to ensure that all voters had access to that information. Millions and millions of voters used it, and actually cost the state $0. And as the candidates here before me, and I assume after me, talked a lot about the budget and the transparency and what your money is being used for, I think it's critical to have elected officials that can actually use your funds with limited resources, get the most out of all your dollars, stretch your dollar. As you're paying your taxes and your fees to the auditor's office, you should entrust that those fees are being used to the maximum of their ability. So now I want to be able to take my experience at just at elections level and expand it to all areas of the auditor's office. So being able to expand services into our rural communities just like this one across Thurston County so that you don't have to drive to Olympia in order to get the services you need. Currently there's a licensing sub-agent just down the street in Grand Mound, but there should be the ability to do anything, register to vote, return your ballot, renew your tabs, do your document recording, all available in, across Thurston County. I think we can do so with limited services just like broadband was brought up, being able to use existing technologies in order to better our community. I also think one thing the auditor should keep their eye on is being able to be involved in the community in a way for example, one of the top initiatives in Thurston County is the housing crisis and the health outcomes for individuals in Thurston County. And so I think one of the things the auditor can do is work with the county leadership and all elected officials in order to get involved in the community in those ways. So again, I thank you for your vote this November. A vote for Stewart Homes is a vote for innovation, accountability, and trust in your local county government. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. All right, number 12, please. Case number 12.
Hey everybody, can you hear me? Cool. I'm Andrew Satin. I'm running for PUD Commissioner. The first thing people usually ask me is, what is PUD Commissioner? It's the Public Utility District. It's a county-wide office. It's nonpartisan. There was no primary race, so you probably didn't see it on your ballot. You definitely didn't see it. Currently, the PUD is a water utility. That means they only run about 300 water systems across the county. They're isolated. 9,000 customers overall. It's a very small system. I think we could lower costs in that system, maybe take on the county's water system, and with economies of scale, we could be saving people on their utility bill every month. We could improve the existing systems. We could switch to solar pumps, for example. That would get us off of PSE's electric grid and make the water pumps work when the power's out. So not only would that lower your bill, it would make it more reliable. But I also have a vision for the future. I think we could go into electric, we could go into public power, we could go into public internet. With power, PSE is the monopoly in the county. Everyone knows, you're paying 14 cents a kilowatt hour on average. Counties around us pay half that. There's no reason we should be stuck with a monopoly. No, I'm not saying we are going to shut down Puget Sound Energy, but we can force them to be more responsible and act as an insurance policy against price gouging and irresponsibility. We can force them to go a little faster in terms of moving to renewables, moving to things like solar. We can do limited programs with the existing PUD now. Without a vote, we couldn't really get into full power. We'd have to do something in terms of, like I said, the solar panels on water pumps. We could do solar on the roof of the PUD buildings. We could push for incentives for other people. We could be modernizing people's plumbing with existing federal programs. With internet, though, we could do wholesale internet, no problem. We could lease existing fiber around the county, and we could get into areas where there is no internet right now. Comcast won't go to that area. So we're not going to shut down Comcast, but we're going to be in direct competition as a wholesale provider to, you could go to co-ops, nonprofits, tribes, municipalities, even like the port or the city, and they could then take it from there and provide internet gigabit speeds to people's homes, to schools, to businesses. We could really help the county in terms of the economy and jobs. We could be a tech hub. If you go to Eastern Washington, they have this problem where it's working too well. If you look at Fort Collins, Colorado, they just sold out of the bonds to fund the program in less than 24 hours. It's a system that PUD already did a study and said it would fund itself within 5 years and be profitable. There's no reason we shouldn't be doing it. So again, I'm Andrew Saturn. Ask for your vote. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ed Orcutt. I'm your state representative in the 20th District. I serve with Rich DeBolt. He's in position 1, I'm in position 2. Rich, I think you've been in for 22 years. I've been in for 17. But because of redistricting, I started out in the 18th District. Because of redistricting, the last 6 I've been representing this area, and quite frankly, I'm very pleased with it. I love the district that I'm in. I love the people that I represent. I think we're very like-minded in a lot of issues. I'm very strong on private property rights. The Alliance for Property Rights rates me as outstanding. So I work to protect against regulations. We had the big Hearst decision, which really threatened your private property rights, threatened your ability to build a home on your own land. And we held firm and pushed hard and got a solution to the Hearst decision
so that you've got some certainty in your water rights and you can do something with your land. I've worked with the county commissioners here, I've worked with legislators on both sides of the aisle on a variety of issues, but I stand for protecting you against tax increases. I work for balancing budgets with existing revenues, trying to make sure that we're prioritizing the dollars that you're already sending us. As Representative McEwen said, you know, we're in some pretty good economic times right now, but we know that about every 7 to 8 years, we have a downturn. It's 2018 and our last downturn was in 2008. So we know what's coming. And the problem that we had in the past is we have not done a good job planning for it. We've not done a good job putting money aside. We're doing a far better job of it. I'm very disappointed with the raid on the money that was supposed to go into the rainy day fund this time, because that's going to be critically important to protecting all of these programs that we're doing when we go into the next downturn. So fiscal responsibility has to be more than just balancing the budget between revenues and expenditures in a given biennium. It has to be much longer term, and those are some of the things that I'm trying to do. Trying to meet with my constituents. I've been to just about every area in the district, and I've been to a number of our school districts, many of them several times, trying to find out what some of their issues are, what some of their challenges are, and trying to develop good working relationships so that I can help make sure that your kids are getting the best education possible. So really appreciate your support in the past, but appreciate your support in November. It's my wife's birthday on November 6th, so please give her a great birthday present by re-electing Ed Orcutt.
Number 14, please. Who's number 14?
I am Senator Tim Sheldon, and thank you to everyone who put this event together. It's really fabulous. I've been in the legislature a long time. I'm the longest serving member. I'm a Democrat. You know, 4 years ago, my opponent had the same opponent, $1.7 million spent in our race. So it's gotten a lot of attention, and my own party works very hard to get rid of it. I'll be real honest with you. And I can tell you right now, I'm the most bipartisan member of the Washington State Legislature. I work well with both sides of the aisle. Whoever's in the majority, I'm going to work with them because I work for my constituents, and I work very hard to do that. I'm a small business owner in Potlatch. We grow oysters, we sell and harvest timber, and also gravel. My opponent teaches music. She's a small business owner, and I sure appreciate that. But I think I fit the district very well. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I got $500,000 with the help of McEwen and Griffey in the budget to help the city of Shelton, which had just lost their largest employer, Simpson Timber Company. Right now, we're just celebrating a new mill that's come in. We worked very hard to make sure that permitting happened, that the mill is online. Sierra Pacific has almost 300 employees. They are hiring more right now. It is the most modern mill in the West Coast. My opponent says that the logging industry is dead. I've noticed a lot of logging trucks on the highway. And I've noticed a lot of people very happy that we have a new mill and that we're working hard, and there are people and families enjoying that paycheck. You know, I serve as well on the Senate Transportation Committee, the Rules Committee, and Energy, Environment, and Telecommunications. I'll tell you a little bit about the Senate Transportation Committee. 4 people go into a room on Wednesday and Thursday nights. I'm one of those 4 people that writes the budget for the Transportation Committee. That's presented there, hopefully passed by the Senate, over to the House, and on to the governor. I've worked very well with individuals here over the years. I said I was the longest serving legislator, so I worked with Senator Amundson, Senator Swecker, Representative DeBold, Representative Orcutt, Senator Braun now, and working on I-5. Great improvements. You know, if you've been around a while here in Rochester, you realize that we didn't have much access out there. It's been very much improved. These projects take a while, and they take building relationships with all the members of the legislature, and that's what I think I'm very good at. Broadband was mentioned. We had a bill last year. We got very, very close to passing that bill for broadband deployment in our rural areas. Right now, it is impossible getting to Seattle, Tacoma. Think of it, 700,000 more residents to the state of Washington,
Thank you,
66% in King Pierce and Snohomish. So broadband is vitally important. Thank you.
All right, number 15. On the outside
Well, thanks very much. My name is Dave Daggett. I'm running for the 35th Legislative District, House of Representatives. We live in Shelton. I'm married, have a son. My wife is a Lutheran pastor. She just retired August 1st. Part of her routine after the sermon, we would be driving home and she'd say, Dave, what was the sermon about? Couldn't remember. The things that I did remember about the sermon was like if she told a story about herself or just generally a story. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I learned that people like to know if you have roots in a community. So the Daggetts have been here since the 1800s. On my mom's side, they were German farmers, came here in World War II. Grandma was a Rosie the Riveter. Mom and Dad worked for Boeing. I worked for Boeing. My son worked for Boeing, long time. I started off as an aircraft mechanic and realized, you know, wow, I was getting bloody knuckles all the time and my back was hurting, so I didn't want to do this, but I had a curiosity about engines and how they worked. So I went back to school, got a bachelor's degree in aeronautics, just really got hooked on education, got an MBA, went on to University of Washington to study for my Doctor of Business Administration. My thesis was on economic impact of businesses on the local community, and ended up with a PhD in engineering. So hopefully you won't hold that against me. From there I taught at university, and then worked on the Star Wars program. So yeah, I was a rocket scientist back in those days, and at Ronald Reagan's Star Wars program. And it kind of formed my political views. I ended up working for Rolls-Royce for quite a while, and then also for Boeing for most of my career. And the one thing that I saw back in those days, I made out really well, because, you know, rocket scientists are paid pretty well, and taxes were cut. But if you look 5 years after that, look at what happened to the deficit. I'm a fiscal conservative, and so I did not like seeing the deficit rise like crazy. And I didn't like seeing the income inequality split off at that point. And so I shifted from being a Republican to an independent, and in the last couple of years I've shifted to being a Democrat. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of my ideas, which are really your ideas and what I've been hearing in the next few minutes. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much. All right,
Good afternoon. So Seahawks win 24-13. Yay! Good afternoon. My name is Dan Griffey. I'm state representative, position number 1 in the 35th district. I've had the pleasure of serving you in that capacity for 4 years. I'm a professional firefighter by trade. I'm a father of 3, a grandfather of 3, and I love my life. I was designed to serve because it was just important to my family that we argue politics at the dinner table. Yes, they actually asked us to argue politics at the dinner table, and we were encouraged to do so. In my tenure in Olympia, I've worked with Richard DeBolt and all of the delegation in the legislature to get a definitive fix to the flooding situation. We passed a capital budget that funded the Boys and Girls Club down here in the rural Rochester area, which is very important in the rural areas so people have things to do. It is important to me that the rural values, jobs, and traditions get to come back. And ridiculous policies and laws that came out of Olympia has crippled those rural jobs, values, and traditions. And we are making great strides in my district to bring them back.
I'm committing to ending the statute of limitations on felony sex crimes because monsters like pedophiles should have to look over their shoulders the rest of their life. I passed an amendment to this year's budget that tests the backlog of rape kits in Washington State to make sure that we establish a database of those people that commit those kind of crimes and we can put them away forever. I passed a bill that ended the taxation when your nonprofit senior centers actually rent out their business, rent out their venues to make sure they weren't taxed any longer. They can leverage their money better than the state of Washington can leverage their money. We've worked on safety improvements on Highway 3 corridor, and I'm proud to say that traffic fatalities, as a firefighter, I see it every day. We used to see a fatality a month in the Highway 3 corridor. We haven't seen a fatality this year. Just by putting rumble strips down the center of the road. We've improved the Highway 101 corridor with cable chain safety enhancements. We are committed to make sure that safety of our families, our kids, our grandkids is number one on my list. We made sure that you could actually drill a well on your private property. I passed a bill in the Senate version that would amend the Growth Management Act and respect local rural development. The governor happened to veto that bill, which is terrible. Thank you so much, Dan Griffey. I appreciate your vote.
Number 17. I feel like I work at a butcher shop or something. Number 17.
Thanks for noticing, Rich. I appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Peter Obarno. I'm a Centralia City Council member and former Rochester resident. I'm here to read a letter from Congresswoman Brera Butler, who is unable to be here today. And she says, I want to thank you for this opportunity to briefly address you. Representing Southwest Washington in Congress has been an honor of my life. I'm so sorry I was not able to be here today, but I look forward to seeing you when I'm back in Rochester again. From day one, when I took my oath as a member of Congress nearly 8 years ago, serving our region and the folks who live here remains my mission. I've listened to you, and I've stood up to both political parties, including my own, when necessary, to put the needs of families and communities here first. Access to good-paying jobs, the ability to raise your family, or the option to retire right here. Those have been my priorities as your servant in Congress. I helped usher into law legislation that would help the average Southwest Washington family see more than $2,300 per year in additional take-home pay. You should be able to save, spend, and invest your money as you see fit. The same legislation is helping create more than 20,000 jobs right here in the state of Washington. Bike shops, small lumber businesses, and other local employers are more optimistic about their chances to grow and hire more than the last 50 years, and I'm committed to work hard and help sustain this level of economic growth. A recent ranking from Georgetown University and the Lugar Center ranked me as one of the 15th most bipartisan members of Congress out of 438 they evaluated. And I'm proud to partner with anyone, Republican or Democrat, to solve problems for our region. When the Chehalis tribe asked me to help them pursue the same economic development projects allowed on non-tribal lands, I got to work. My bill to overturn an antiquated prohibition has passed the U.S. House, and now Senator Cantwell has partnered with me to push it through the Senate. If we're successful, this Chehalis plan to build a distillery, brewery, and restaurant will bring more than 100 new local jobs to our community. And I won't stop fighting for solutions that will help our region, whether it's addressing the exploding sea lion population that's savaging our salmon runs, shortening wait times for veterans facing the VA, or providing forest management reforms necessary to prevent devastating wildfires. Nobody will work harder than I will. I also pledge to protect Social Security and Medicare. Seniors have spent their entire working lives paying into these programs, and they need to be strong and secure for when these folks retire. And you can count on me to make sure that happens. Again, I regret not being here today. I would ask that you please visit my website, www.votejamie.com, to read more about my work for this region or to get involved with my campaign. Serving Southwest Washington in Congress has been the privilege of a lifetime. I want to continue fighting for our community where I grew up and humbly ask for your support in November. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name's Mary Hall, and it's an honor to serve as your county auditor. You know, I believe
believe there is nothing more important to our democracy than your vote, and I take that very seriously. Protecting your vote is my #1 priority. You know, in my 5 years as county auditor, I've improved access to voting and made it easier for military members to receive their ballot. When I started, there were just over 161,000 registered voters. That's up 10% today, and 20% for registered, or for military voters. Currently, we're at 180,000 registered voters. And during my last 5 years, I've also worked hard to streamline government, eliminate waste, and reduce costs by strengthening financial controls and creating partnerships within the county and in the community. By combining the Thurston County Voters Pamphlet with the state, I saved $25,000 in 2014 and $16,000 in 2016. And we're actually one of the few counties that print a primary voters pamphlet or special election voter pamphlets. And doing that, I've also reduced election costs. You know, we have 27 drop boxes located across the county, soon to be 28. And I've worked to see how we can make that less expensive to close those on election night. So, you know, we used to pay mileage and rent vehicles. Now I use the county assessor's vehicles, which are parked at 8 o'clock at night. That costs us no money at all. You know, I also have really encouraged other departments to take discounts. It's not something that county government is really used to doing. And in addition to voting, the auditor oversees county finances. So to give you an idea of what a discount looks like, a single printing invoice for ballots, a discount was $1,000. And in doing that, I've saved over $93,000 in the last 3 years. Simultaneously, we've added a lot of services, same-day service for lost vehicle or boat titles, and we're going to begin issuing passports in October. So if you need a passport or need to renew it, you can now come into the auditor's office. I've also been working hard to strengthen security. Election security is my #1 priority. I've worked with the Department of Homeland Security. I've had the National Guard in to meet with our folks. And I'm taking advantages of the free services that they have to offer. I'm also implementing 2-factor authentication for all of my election workers. So it's something you have and something you know to get into any election computer. I'm a nationally certified elections administrator with 22 years experience, and I offer the vision, commitment, experience, and proven leadership Thurston County needs.
Thank you, Mary.
I ask for your vote. Thank you.
I am Linda Osterman, and I am currently a PUD commissioner, and I am asking you to re-elect me. We have had quite a time in the last 6 years. When I came in 2010, our PUD was 6 years old in terms of operation. It had been on the books since 1938, but it didn't even have an office until 2004. So we got a late start. We started with taking some of the poorest water systems there were, some of the ones nobody ever wanted to touch again. We've got a new manager. We have doubled in size starting in 2016. So now, instead of having 4,000 customers, we have 8,000 customers. We have a new building. We had people working, we had 10 people working probably in this much space, no restroom, no nothing when I came in. None of the field staff even had an office to put their things. They had to live out of their trucks. And after about 1.5 years of that, it just hurt me the way we were treating our customers. So after about another 6 months of struggle, I asked if I could take it over, looking for a new building. And we have a new building. It's 1230 Relic. It's a beautiful 2-story building. In fact, we have another building to rent. And our field staff and our compliance office is now by the feed store there on Highway 99. which we like because it gives us closer to some of our systems that are out here. We do not do municipal water in the cities. We do the counties. So I want to tell you that with the laws that have changed, we have had to now test every system. We have to test them once a month, and they have to have meters. So that's been a shock for people that we've taken in the last year, because some of them didn't have meters, and some of them had rates that were $5. And you know, today you can't get your water for $5. So we've had to deal with disgruntled people. I have a master's degree in mental health, and I guess maybe that helps for that one. I've also, our wages are very high. Besides having a building for our people to work in, we pay very adequate, same as the cities do, and sometimes higher than the state. We have gone from 3/4 turnover in 5 years to no turnover in the last 2 years. And I believe that's because we're treating our staff well, and we have an excellent staff. When I first came on, when we had a public hearing, people screamed, and you know they can.
Thank you, Linda.
And we don't have any now.
Thank you very much. Did all of the candidates have an opportunity to speak? We made it through. Look at that. We are on a roll. Okay. Now, my friend Donna Weaver has a number of questions from the community. Please keep in mind, we're not going to make it through all of these questions today, but we do commit to go ahead and take the questions that you've asked that are not able to be answered. We're going to submit those to you candidates for an answer, and then we'll follow up with a summary with the rest of the community over the next couple of weeks so that we've got that information. So Donna's going to read a question. If you as a candidate are interested in this being the question that you answer, please raise your hand. I've made a note of who is what number, so I'll call you up in the order of your numbers. We're going to have 2 minutes to answer that question. So you can answer one, raise your hand to indicate that you want to answer the question being read, or wait until another one comes along and we'll see how many we can get through. Donna, would you please read the first question?
Oh, you guys came up with some doozies. Thank you so much for all the participation. I would like to ask one question. Would it be possible for the community to leave an email address if they want us to get those questions we don't get to and have the candidates answer them and respond to them by email? Okay.
Lots of paper time cards.
On the website?
We don't have a website that we...
Why do you guys make this meeting up? You put that notice, can you put those questions that are answered on that or on the event?
Oh, on the event thing. That's a good way to do it.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's teamwork. Woo.
Teamwork. Teamwork. Thank you, guys. Okay, first question. First question. What is your vision for ensuring behavioral health resource treatment and prevention for the Thurston County citizens? Thurston County citizens, you'll have 2 minutes to respond. It looks like we have one gentleman raising his hand.
Can you read it again?
What is your vision for ensuring behavioral health resources, treatment, and prevention for Thurston County citizens? All right,
Okay.
call
Bud, would you please come on up and spend 2 minutes, please? And then Diane will give you a 10-second wrap-up.
Okay, sure. Thank you for that question. It's absolutely critical. We live in a nation where we are able to feed a lot of our population. Our roads are great. We can travel where we want to go. But one area we do not do very good, even in this county, is the mental health and the substance abuse and behavioral issues. I am currently the chair of the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization. And we do it in 2 forms. If you have an issue at your home, we have one particular facility you call and we get you assistance. If there's an issue where there's a law enforcement involved, we have a triage center that we finished here in Thurston County, and we're building one in Shelton to make a second. I find that to be exceptionally good as far as being on that other layer of government so that we can help those individuals and those families be able to thrive and survive. It is absolutely important that we take responsibility of the behavior and mental health piece there. We do it in such a way that we fund it and we actually have treatment. That way the two come together. We do not have to have those issues for long, using the big jail as a place to be able to harbor those who are in need of substance and mental health abuse solutions.
Thank you, Bud. Thank you very much. All right, Donna's got another question for you. Yes, who you wanted to also answer, please, Richard, come on up.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Just really quick, right now in Washington State, we work very hard to coordinate the operating budget with the capital budget. You guys have seen a lot of improvements going in at Maple Lane. That's been a great opportunity for us to create mental health beds. There was a lawsuit called the True Blood decision that made it so we have to triage people within a timely manner and we don't just put them in jail. Mental health funding has reached, I think, one of the best proportions in a long time that we've seen in our state, because we're actually pairing the facilities with the people in the cases in the fields. And I think we're doing a very good job of listening to our local government. And so as we work forward, the only thing I want to see us focus on is remember that addiction is part of mental health, and that we can't just focus on the opioid crisis as not a mental health issue. We have to stay engaged in that. And then the second thing I guess I want to add is that each and every one of us, as we look forward, we need to make sure that our counties and our BHOs and our behavioral health direct service providers are not duplicating services, so we get the most money possible to the people that need it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to respond to that question? All right, Donna has another question. She's got a whole handful of questions.
I do very well at reading, and that's my forte. Nothing else, but reading is good. All right, the questions are, what can we do here about better internet service and better public transportation in our local area?
Internet service and transportation, that's going to be two.
It is two, but we're combining.
Okay, we're gonna let you talk about it. Please. Well, is anyone else? I want to make sure to go in order. Anyone else want to respond? Nope. Come on up, Andrew. Come on up.
I can answer half of the question. I can't talk about transportation really. I mean, I have some ideas, but I'm only running for utilities. So, in an area like this, there is Comcast available, but it's only available in some areas. You could have a block where one house has Comcast and your neighbor doesn't, and Comcast will say, if you give us $5,000, we'll connect you. And like I was hinting at earlier, we could really, the PUD could basically lease fiber and act as a wholesaler to these other organizations. So you could form a neighborhood co-op basically, if you wanted to, and pretty much rent internet access and provide it to your neighbors. And it's totally legal under the existing laws. We don't have to change anything. You don't have to raise taxes. You don't have to hold a vote. And these are things where, you know, schools could get into this, tribes could get into this, small businesses could get into this, and it would provide jobs, boost the economy, get people access to the information they need, especially younger people, students, lower income people. There's places like Baltimore has a program where they're providing tablets with 4G to people who are lower income, and they need access to the internet just like anyone to apply for a job, to get to the services they need for their kids, to get the information they need to do their homework, stuff like that. So I think, you know, I'm open to ideas. I don't have all the answers, but I think we could definitely be doing more.
Thank you very, very much. All right, wait, let's see who's first here.
Yeah, we've got Dan, and then I think Dan.
That's Ed, this is Dan.
Yeah, Ed, what number were you?
I'm third.
So Ed, please come on up first, and then Dan will catch you.
Thank you very much.
Keep me straight.
So on the internet issue, you know, Representative DeWalt talked about he had a piece of legislation last year. I actually had a piece of legislation last year too, and it would work along the same lines as the .09 money in many of our counties. And I'm willing to look at other opportunities too, other options that we can do. But it's absolutely critical that we focus as much money as we can on getting that last mile done. There have been some areas where a local government has tried to do their own. Unfortunately, they did it in the city where there was already service being provided, and then they got to the edge of the city limits and said, oh, getting outside of city limits is hard and expensive. Well, exactly. That's the problem we're trying to solve. And so, you know, Rich is working on it, I'm working on it. We're going to be, I've already met with the governor's office. They're interested in doing something on this issue and really pushing to try and get internet out into the rural areas. The reason why I'm pushing so hard on that is, you know, a lot of places you've got internet access in your schools, but then the students go home and have no internet access to continue their schoolwork. But another thing is, a lot of people start businesses out of their homes, and they don't all live in the incorporated areas. So in order for them to be able to order the supplies they need or accept the orders from their customers, they need to be able to have reliable internet access. And I actually talked with somebody who lives down in the Winlock area who is high up in Boeing. And he, as long as he has reliable internet service, can work from Winlock on things for Boeing. So it's very, very important, one, to get jobs out of the Puget Sound region and into our area and give people an opportunity to build their own businesses. So we are working on that.
Thank you very much. All right, and then Dan next, and then we'll have you on.
So to answer the question, I always look at the lowest common denominator. What is the barriers to have a private sector to do the investment? The big barrier is pole attachment fees. A lot of people don't understand that to go, you know, if you say you got to go 5 miles, you could have up to $25 per pole that you, attachment fee. A lot of the poles are owned by public utility districts, which is a member-owned utility. It is your utility, and the pole attachment fee is now a barrier on your poles that you own to you getting broadband. So I'm going to be sponsoring a bill, I believe, to end the pole attachment fees for the last 5 miles. The other thing that we can do is, you know, we had to develop our telephone infrastructure. We collected taxes, and we paid that money out to expand our telephone wire network. Well, that's an aged and expired network. We should transfer that money to expanding our broadband network and fiber. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Come on up, Brenda.
You know, broadband is a huge issue. It's even an issue out at the airport. Some of the reason they don't have businesses around the airport is because they don't have 5G. So the PUD has done a study. We paid for a study on this. The law says that the PUD can only do wholesale. So we worked with the 3 cities, the main cities in Olympia and Lacey and Tumwater. They identified areas where they needed connections. We looked at it. We tried to go out. We did a study in Hawks Prairie for 1.25 miles, and it was $1 million to lay the cable. Now, we have to have retail to sell it, and we have to be able to partner with somebody retail, because we cannot take any water money and spend it on another utility. It's against the law to do that. We don't meet the criteria as being rural. And that's hard to say down here, but it's true. Thurston County does not meet that. So we're still looking at areas. Schools are very important, and some of the alternatives when I was in Spokane studying this was that the towers are going to be more local, and existing people will be able to use them. We won't actually be putting the cable in, but let's look and wait for some legislation this year. We are hoping that we will be able to get retail. Frontier just went down in eastern Washington, as you know, and so the cable's there, but there's no retail. There's no retail left. So it's an issue that we still got a long ways to go on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to respond to the question regarding internet transportation? All right, Donna, may we have the next question, please?
The question is, why are the South Rural Thurston County property taxes higher than the Olympia, Lacey, and the rest of Thurston County? Sounds like somebody needs to see if they can answer that one.
Raise your hand if you're interested in answering.
So you heard me say that I'm not a career politician. Maybe that's a good thing. And because of it, I've had to go around and talk to hundreds of people to understand what their concerns are. Their number one concern is property taxes. Property taxes are killing us. And so what I would like to do when I get into office is to lower your property taxes. I know that sounds strange coming from a Democrat, but I want to do that without hurting our kids' education. We have the most regressive tax structure in the US, in Washington. So how do we lower our property taxes and not cut our kids' school funding? Any ideas? People don't want an income tax. I've heard a lot of people say that. Do not give us an income tax. It's political suicide to talk about an income tax. But I'm going to talk about a capital gains excise tax, which is different. An income tax is a tax on your wages. An excise tax is from something like selling your stock or bonds or investment property. If we put a 2.7% excise tax on the capital gains from that and had it limited so that only the 1% or people that are making more than $670,000 a year would pay that, we could effectively lower our property taxes. And so that's an area that I'm running on. I want to lower your property taxes by having the wealthy 1% pay their fair share. If any of you out there are making $670,000, I applaud you because it's going to be a noble thing for you to help pay for our kids' education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to?
I've got two. Bear with me. I want to make sure I do this properly. So,
I'm 10.
sorry. There we go. Thank you very much. Way to play nice. You want the question answered. That wasn't answered. We're going to try and get one here.
I think this has to do with lead.
2 minutes. Here we go.
They've been asked several times.
This probably won't be a direct answer to your question, but at least it will maybe at least shed a certain light on it. Property tax, as well as some of the other taxes we have, are a three-tier system. Part of the property tax goes to the state, part of the property tax goes to the city and county, and the third part of the property tax goes what's strangely called junior taxing districts. And junior taxing districts could be weed control, could be conservation districts, could be, we just want more of your money districts. And so, depending on where you live, has a lot to do with what additional junior taxing districts you're in. So a lot of people may see higher taxes than they think they would get in their area compared to a different area because of the junior taxing districts. And I also want to make a comment with regards to how regressive these taxes are and the mythology that somehow a capital gains tax would offset property tax. In fact, House Bill 2967, which is the capital gains income tax bill, has sections in it with a complete framework for a full-scale income tax. It only weaponizes the capital gains to begin with, but the entire framework for an income tax is in there. And just as a minor correction, the amount of that capital gains is 7%, not 2.4%. 2.4%, by the way, is 2.4 cents a mile for the mileage tax. So maybe that's where the numbers got confused. Thank you.
Thank you for that. You've got it? Okay. Anyone else want to respond to that question? Please.
Went a little bit out of it. You would have been number first.
Since this has gotten sort of off the specific point and into taxes in general, you know, I'd like to ask everybody to pull back a little bit and understand that whether it's Rochester or Grand Mound or the 35th Legislative District or the state of Washington, we live in communities. And the way that we organize ourselves to confront common problems or pursue common goals is called government. And the way that we pay for that is called taxes. Now we can levy taxes that are regressive. Sales tax is probably the most regressive tax. Property taxes are fairly regressive. Income taxes are, by design, the most progressive. And look, personally, I think we need to go to an income tax. But I'm also going to say, and I really should have started this, no matter where the tax money comes from, the very first obligation that we in government have is to make sure that those tax dollars are spent effectively, carefully. That's the most important thing that we can do. But we also have got to stop thinking about we don't want any more taxes. Let me tell you that we have our sort of frontier mentality was a wonderful thing, and it built this state from dirt and trees to what we see today. But this is no longer the 19th century or the 20th century. The Marlboro Man is dead. We accomplish a hell of a lot more working together than each of us off on our own.
Thank you, James. Does anyone else? Are we ready for a different question? All right.
We got a number of variations of this question. I'm going to start with the question, and then I'm going to read the comment. Would Thurston County be willing to automatically lower property taxes anytime the county takes away the people's rights to use their land? This is the comment. 90% of my property is off limits for my use due to critical area buffers. I petitioned the county to adjust my taxes to reflect what I can actually use. There's a question.
Is that a question anyone would like to answer today? But let's hold that one because I want to make sure everybody gets a chance, but we'll send it out for response. Is there anyone else that wants to answer that question while we're here?
It's a county
specific. I know that. I just want to make sure, just because I want to try to get to everybody. We're trying to make sure it's good time spent. And we will make sure all the questions do get answered and everyone gets an opportunity to answer those in writing, absolutely. So,
Some of these questions are specific to positions.
that's right, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. We'll try to circle back around. Let's try to get everybody covered and then we'll circle back around to that.
I'll try to answer.
No?
I'll try to.
Okay. Just right in the interest of not having people not be able to speak. I want to make sure.
Senator Tim Sheldon, I'll try to answer. I was a county commissioner for 12 years. Toughest job I ever had. But when your property is reduced you can't use it for purposes of what you bought the property for, if you're a residence, if you can't build your house, if you're a business, you can't expand. I think the county assessor has an obligation to reduce the value of your property. And we pay it on a system here, on a system of what your value is. So if it's, you're precluded from its normal use and your ability, you're taking away someone's private property rights. And I think that our Constitution, both federal and state constitution, protects your private property rights. So I think it's incumbent upon the assessor to reduce the value and give those people the opportunity then to enjoy their property. But you know, if it needs to be reduced in value. You certainly can't enjoy it if it's $1 million property and you can't use it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that, Well,
we have a commissioner.
have the Bud and Ty. Are you willing to answer that question? Okay, so we've got Bud's first in the line, and then Ty as far as the numbers go. So come on out. Thank you very much.
The only thing I can add to that is before, I would like to have it done more before this, and have the assessor deal with the problem. There's too many times it comes to what they call the Board of Equalization. And there it gets bogged down even more. And I see people leaving out of there very frustrated. Sometimes they're very successful when they petition the board, and they get a fraction or all of it. And most of the time they don't, even over a number of years, and then it gets backlogged over time. And I absolutely support what was reducing it to value, and the assessor should be the one to do that.
Thank you. Short and sweet. Thank you very much. And then Ty, if you'd like to answer that question, that would be great.
Thanks. Well, I didn't volunteer to answer because, frankly, it's not something I've considered before, and it's an interest. I understand the concept. I do. Obviously, I want to make sure that policies that we do as county commissioners are in line with applicable law. I'm familiar with some case law that says that I'm an attorney by trade. I'm familiar with some case law that says that clearly applied zoning regulations, don't necessarily require that. But it's certainly something that if I understand the concept, I understand people's frustrations, and I think that there may be a matter of degree, and there may be situations where that kind of policy will be appropriate. But again, similar to what Mr. Blake said, I want to work with the assessor and make sure that we're clearly and fairly applying any kind of policy like that, because it could be a slippery slope toward very difficult determinations about people's property value. That's the assessor's job, and certainly support if it was something that was consistent with Washington law in that area. But it's an interesting concept. I appreciate the question. I will make a note. Not something I thought about.
Okay, thank you very much. We're ready for another question.
This is a specific question. Do candidates Sheldon or Bowling support growing hemp as an industrial crop?
Oh, so that's a specific call-out for Irene. Irene, you're first on the list if you'd like to come and answer, and it sounds like both of you will be answering that question. Come on up.
I'm very interested in any crop, any industry, any manufacturing that we can bring into the 35th LD to help promote our economy. As I mentioned earlier, in fact, I did mention hemp as one of the things that I think that we could certainly look into. Mitch McConnell in Kentucky has legalized that. Hemp is not, it's from the cannabis family, but it's not marijuana. It's a totally different agricultural product, and it's used for many, many, many things around the world, actually. It also has a very good profit margin, and I have done quite a bit of research in this, and I've been in association with several the cannabis growers in Washington State, and I fully, if it's within our state law, and if we can change as a legislator the permission of growing hemp in the state, I think it would be a very good product. The other thing is that it grows very well in our rocky soils here. We have some tough soils in many areas of our counties. So it's something definitely I would support and look into. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Did you want me to ask you a question?
Yes, sir. Yes. Your name was on that question.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll be brief. This country grew hemp years in the 1890s. It was used for hawsers and ropes and marine uses. I think it's a viable industry for the 35th district. It's a viable industry for anywhere else in the state of Washington. Manufacturing and agriculture present us with new jobs, but they also spin off the service jobs, the fertilizer, the trucking, all the other things that are involved. So certainly I would support any legal application of that product and manufacturing of it here in the 35th district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's called a smattering.
That was a smattering, you're right. This is specifically for the prosecutor race. How do you intend to balance justice and recovery options for those experiencing mental health and addictions that are caught up with CPS or law enforcement?
Good question.
2 minutes.
All right, in
Yes,
2 minutes.
Victor, we got you on the list first, and then
In
John,
2
if you'd like to
minutes.
follow up.
May I have another look at that question?
Certainly. How do you intend to? Did you write it?
This isn't my handwriting.
Well, I think the incumbent would agree with me that it would be impossible to fully answer that question within 2 minutes. What I will say is we need to bring, as prosecutor, I will bring a lot of stakeholders to the table to best analyze how to deal with these issues. I think that one of the biggest mistakes made in the last few years was the opportunity lost with the law enforcement assisted diversion program, which had worked so well in Seattle and in numerous other cities around the country, including where I used to be a prosecutor down in Los Angeles County for almost 15 years. Because trying to impose it from the top down, to have the prosecutor say what the lead program is going to be, is what led it to fail. And to only put one person through the entire time it had been operating, it only helped one person. That's the sign that not enough people were consulted in how to implement that. And you need to have mental health professionals, you need to have other behavioral health issues, people who know how to treat them brought to the fore. You need to be talking to the beat cop on the street about how to best apply these issues and make sure that people receive the help they need at the best possible time for efficiency in the system. And I believe that LEAD, which has a pre-booking diversion system, in other words, before the person is actually arrested and put in jail, because that's a huge expense to the economy and to socially to the individual. It causes stresses at home, causes disruption for children at school. It may even lead to homelessness due to lost income and lost wages. So pre-booking diversion is the way to apply this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that response. And I think what we'll do in the interest of time is we'll have this be the last question. We didn't get any questions for the auditor specifically, but we'll send the questions out to everyone in case you've got something to add. And then, Drew, we didn't get an opportunity to hear from you, right? Yes, but we'll forward the questions. Thank you very much for the interest.
All right, no problem, thank you. Last Monday, at 7 o'clock in the morning, I went out and walked around downtown Olympia with the Olympia Police Department walking patrol. So I could see firsthand what they see. Every Monday morning when they go around and they're waking up people who are sleeping in the alcoves or sleeping in tents and really have that experience firsthand. And I was even, I guess, more dedicated to the idea that we do have to have a good portfolio of diversion programs out of criminal justice. We've got a really good start. So right now, as we're currently here, we have about 8 different diversion programs of different types. Some that cater towards mentally ill, some that work with substance use disorder, some with co-occurring disorders. And the goal is to try to get the right person in the right program that will help them succeed. Pre-charge diversion may be one solution for one group of people, but we need a portfolio. Recently, we started a program in my office called First Look. First Look is a unit which actually does that work in terms of, at the first look, taking a proactive look at every case coming in the office and looking to see if that case belongs in a different system or a different track. If there's a way that we can divert that case out of the system safely so that the community remains safe, but yet we can get that person the help and the services they need. and they're able to route the case into a track to get that case into that particular diversion program. As we increase those diversion programs, and by the way, we have a group of stakeholders meeting right now, every month, that includes mental health, public defense, courts, prosecutors, really everybody that needs to be at the table. We're already talking about these things, already creating these diversion programs. So really, we're already doing what it is that will lead us to the road for success on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, I think that was rather successful, and I believe that we will probably, I speak on behalf of my fellow chamber members and some of the community folks here, that if we do this for the elections as they come up, then Rochester will have a much grander voice, and I think we'll see a lot more participation as well. So I think that you've really set the stage for us to do some great things in this community and for the community members to have a voice with their vote. So thank you very, very much for your time spent here.